Welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. In my last video, I talked about three of my favorite vintage manual focus wide-angle lenses that I use on my Nikon mirrorless cameras. In this video, I'm going to be talking about three of my favorite vintage normal lenses that I use on my mirrorless cameras. But before I begin, I just want to say that I have a lot of normal lenses, and I consider a normal lens anything from 45 to 60. And the lenses I'll be talking about in this video are from 50 to 58, 50 millimeter to 58. But recently I sold a couple lenses. I sold a 55 millimeter Canon 1.2 that dates from the mid-60s. And also the original 58 millimeter 1.4 Nikkor lens that was introduced along with the Nikon F in 1959. I wasn't using those lenses much, and I decided to sell them. But I think if I still had those two lenses, I think the Canon would have fit in here as one of my top three, as one of my favorite three. So let me get started, and why don't we go up in focal length? So I'm going to start with the Canon 50 millimeter 1.4 new FD. And the thing about this lens, it is extremely sharp. At 1.4, in fact, it's the sharpest 1.4 lens I have. It's a lot of plastic, so it's not as well made as the Nikon lenses or the older Canon lenses, or even some of the others. But sharpness, it's got plenty of it. It's got a rubberized focusing ring. It focuses down to 1.5 feet. Very smooth focus. I really like this lens. I've used it quite a bit for nighttime photographs. It's really good. I took some shots with this. I remember back in Vegas and in Bar Harbor, Maine, and it's a really nice lens. It takes 52 millimeter filters like most of the Nikon manual focus lenses do. This lens has half click stops from 1.4 to 22. So to use this on my Nikon cameras, I have a Photossi FD to NZ adapter. So that will adapt the Canon FD lenses or even the Canon FL lenses for use on Nikon Z mount cameras. And it just bayonets right on, very simple. Okay, and then it mounts to the camera. The adapter, as all adapters, has no optics in it. It's just a hollow tube. Okay, so the next lens we're going to talk about is one of my favorite all-time lenses of any focal length, and it's Nikon's 55 millimeter 2.8 micro Nikkor. It's a macro lens. Some people may say, well, I don't really consider that a normal lens. Well, I'm talking about focal length here. Okay, a normal focal length lens. A macro lens is a specialized lens for close-up photography. This lens focuses down to 1 to 2, so half life size. It stops down to 32, from 2.8 to 32. It focuses down to just under 10 inches, and you can see it really extends a lot when it's focused that close. Very well made. All metal except for the rubberized focusing ring. This is an AIS lens that came out in the early 80s. It's great for close-up photography. That's what it's designed for. But it's also great at infinity. It's one of the sharpest lenses I own. I prefer this to Nikon 60 millimeter micro Nikkor, which is an autofocus lens. I just feel the focus mechanism on this is smoother. And since when you're doing macro photography, close-up photography, a lot of times it's better to manually focus. And I just think the feel of this for manual focusing is better. It takes 52mm filters, and it's one of Nikon's great lenses. Now, I use this lens on my Nikon mirrorless cameras with the F to Z adapter. The F to Z adapter will allow you to use Nikon F mount lenses on Nikon Z mount cameras. It'll allow you to use autofocus Nikon lenses, manual focus Nikon lenses with CPUs, which transmit information to the camera, because it has contacts. It has electronic contacts on both sides, on the F mount side and on the Z mount side. You could also use this lens, or any Nikon F mount lens for that matter, on your Sony or Canon or other mirrorless cameras with another adapter. This adapter is only for Nikon cameras. But for example, I have here a K&F Concept Nikon F to Z mount adapter. It has no electronic contacts. So although you would be able to mount an F mount autofocus lens, it wouldn't autofocus. And it works great with this Nikon manual focus lens or any Nikon F mount manual focus lens. Okay, of course, as all these adapters do, they're going to add to the length of the lens. They're going to make it longer. These adapters will position the lens at the proper distance from the focal plane of the mirrorless camera so that you'll be able to focus to infinity. Okay? And finally, I'm going to talk about a much older lens. This is the Minolta 58mm MC Rocore PF. It's a 1.4 lens, takes 55mm filters, and I should have mentioned that the Nikon takes 52mm filters like the Canon. This is an all-metal lens. It dates from the mid-60s, I believe. It's a really nice lens. It's sharp. I think, like I said, if I still own the Canon 1.2, I would put that above this just because of the 1.2. If you've never shot with a 1.2 lens, it just really throws out the background. It really allows you to isolate your subject. Not that a 1.4 lens doesn't, but the 1.2, of course, will do it better. It's a half stop faster. This lens, like the Canon 1.2 wasn't the sharpest wide open, but it's usable wide open at 1.4, and you stop this down a little bit, and it's a very nice sharp lens. Again, all metal construction. It has half click stops from 1.4 to f/16, and it will focus down to 2 feet. And the adapter I use for this is the Photasi MD to Nikon Z adapter, and very easily the lens mounts to the camera. You just match up the red dot on the lens to the red dot on the adapter, and there you go. Again, it adds to the length of the lens. So these are 3 of my favorites. Let me know what some of your favorites are if you use 50mm lenses. I recently did a video on why use a 50mm lens. Back in the 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, when you bought a 35mm camera, it usually came with a 50mm lens, or 55 or 58mm lens. And starting out, you really got to learn that lens. My first 35mm camera came with a 55mm lens. It was a Pentax H1A that came with a 55 2.0. And I really got to know that lens, and then moved on to a wide angle and eventually a telephoto. So I think a normal lens in that range, 50 to 60, 45 to 60, whatever, is a good lens to learn with. And then you move on. And again, whether you're starting with a digital camera, a mirrorless camera, a DSLR, I think one of these lenses is a really good starting point to learn photography. So let me know what you think. What's your favorite normal lens? Do you use vintage manual focus lenses on your mirrorless camera? Oh, and one other thing. When I spoke about the wide angles, I spoke about using them kind of in a point and shoot type thing, where you would just set a focus, set your aperture, and see where the depth of field fell, so that you could just pick up the camera and shoot. Great for street photography. These lenses, not so much doing it that way. You need to focus them, I believe, unless you really stop it down and you have a lot of light and you can really stop it down. But I think with these lenses, you're better off focusing them. And mirrorless cameras, I think, make focusing these lenses easier than with film cameras that these lenses were originally designed for. Because with mirrorless cameras, you have focus peaking, and you also have the ability to enlarge the image in your viewfinder or LCD to 100% to allow for really accurate focus. Slows you down maybe a little bit, rather than, if you had an autofocus lens on, but you get really accurate focus. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you're doing, what lenses you're using, and leave your question or comments in the comments below. And I always try to respond to all questions and comments. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and look for my next video, which will be on 3 of my favorite telephoto lenses for use on mirrorless cameras. So thanks for watching, and I usually come out with a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So I'll talk to you next time.